Hey guys, Greg Z here, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create RGB mats in Redshift. Okay, so I've got this simple scene set up here with these three objects, and they each have their own material assigned. So to create a RGB mat with Redshift, we want to create something called a Puzzle Matte AOV. And you'll find that under the AOV section in our render settings. And I can just create a new puzzle mat. And I'm going to rename it to RGB Mat 1. Now if I press this arrow button here, we'll get the actual node for this AOV in the attribute editor. Now under the Puzzle Mat section, you'll see that we have a mode attribute and three of these ID values. And Redshift allows us to specify the IDs and how they're selected, either based on the material or the object IDs. So to start off with, we'll use the material ID, and I'm going to set these ID values to something like 1, 2, and 3. And it's important that I keep these values the same as the material IDs set on these objects, so that the puzzle mat can read these materials correctly. So I'm going to open up the hypershade, and you'll see we have our three shaders here for each of the objects. And I'm going to make the sphere red, so I will set its material ID to 1. I want the cube to be green, so I'm going to set it to 2. And the cylinder is going to be blue, so that one is going to be 3. And now if I render, we should get the beauty render in the render view, but if we take a look at the output folder where the renders are going, you'll see that there's a RGB Mat 1 alongside the beauty render. So if I open that up, you'll see we get the expected result. So another way to do a RGB mat is by using the object ID. So I'm going to go to the AOV section of our render settings, and I'm just going to create another puzzle mat. And I'm going to name this one RGB Mat 2. And I'm going to set the mode to object ID. And I'm going to use the same values as before for the ID channels. And this time I'm going to go into the shape nodes of all these three objects. And under the Redshift section there's a object ID attribute. So this time I'm going to make the sphere green, so I'm going to set its object ID to 2. The cube is going to be blue, so we'll set that to 3. And the cylinder is going to be red, so let's set it to 1. And if we render again, we'll get the same result as before. But if we look at the output folder, we'll see there's now a RGB Mat 2. And we'll see that the green is on the sphere, the blue is on the cube, and the red is on the cylinder. And if I just flip between these RGB mats, you can see they're different. So this is a simple example of how to set up a RGB mat, either with object ID or material ID. So here are a few RGB mats that I created for a recent project. Now you'll find that these mats can be really useful for compositing, as they allow you to mask out parts of an image. So I've used this technique to balance the colors of all the trees and plants in the scene and give the final image a more uniform color grade. So that's a basic example of how to create RGB mats in Redshift.